Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Renewing Rebirthing Called by Love Institute calls. I am so thrilled and happy that you're here. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be online with this group. Again, I am totally, totally thrilled. And it's just wonderful. And Mary, I'm not getting myself on speaker view. So you can see if you can get me back on speaker view. And uh, we are actually, Mary and Ross and I are learning some of the ropes ourselves because Mary stepped in to do the um, technical and we're learning how to do it as we go. So it's beautiful, beautiful, and I know that it's all going to be showing up perfectly. And so thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. So let's start out in one of the ways that we often started out um, when we were doing Living Loving Legacy. And there were the 10 people that most influenced my life, and they included people like Adyashanti and Jean Houston and wonderful, beautiful, beautiful souls. And one of the things that always happened on those calls was that we would have people from all over the world. And so what I'm going to do is to go back to one of the things I said in the Living Loving Legacy calls, Hello World. How wonderful it is to join together with you on these calls. So today our focus is on a conversation between Ross and I, and yet I want to just share a few things to begin with that are part of some of the things that's important to me to say. During the first hour, Ross and I will primarily be the ones in conversation. During the last 30 minutes, the thing that I'm going to invite people to do is to begin to raise their hands and share the kinds of things that they're hearing that was meaningful to them. And in a time of 2 or 3 minutes, just share one or two glimpses of their own soul's destiny that they have connected with as a result of being on this call. So that is a beautiful, beautiful thing. The theme for today is Song of the Soul. It's about a love song that our soul is singing to us constantly, that guides us in our destiny path and gives us glimpses of how to fulfill our destiny. And so today, we're going to focus on glimpses that relate to Ross's life. And next month, which will be our regular calls on the third Wednesday, Mary, third Wednesday of every month, 10 o'clock Pacific and 1 o'clock Eastern. Ross is going to become me for part of that call, and he's going to ask me questions or be in dialogue about my soul glimpses that for me go all the way back to my early childhood and through most of the stages of my life. My life has changed in huge ways in the last 2 or 3 years, especially after the death of my brother, that just totally, totally catapulted me to another level and took me completely beyond anything I had ever dreamed of. And um, it was a wonderful, wonderful gift to be able to say, oh my God, what's happening to my life? And take a deep breath and expand into the vastness. And that involved moving here to Kansas City, which is where Unity Village is, the heart of America, and where Ed and I are living together now. I knew Ed in my 30s. We had a 2 or 3 year passionate love affair then, and he invited me to come back and explore continuing that. So we're in that exploration, and that's been one of the interesting challenges. I thought I knew all about all of the stages of life and how to communicate at all of the stages, and I knew I was excellently trained in all of the stages. Well, guess what? Ed still triggered me, and I still triggered him, and we'd have to pause and say, what just happened? So I'm back in a learning stage again. Isn't that amazing? And so as we move toward today's call, I want to just share just a moment of one of the glimpses that's come into my life in this time of my life, in just the last couple of years. Started with the pandemic, when I thought I would get involved in it as entertainment. I'd never taken it seriously. Now I have learned to take astrology very seriously, and I look at for my transits every day. This day, today, let me just read 2 or 3 lines. Gifts of brilliance from the heavens. You understand your mission and you're ready to pursue it. Feel the joy, clarity, and purpose. And then a transit not too long after that, an invitation to rise up and meet your destiny. And another transit after that, that said that I would have some challenges potentially. It said, what do you have the space to see now? And what I responded to that was that without the letting go, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So I'm wondering if any of you are in those kinds of similar moments in time and similar intersection in time. Dana, I'm so excited about seeing you on the call today. Our intersections in time have spanned the vastness now from when you and Hani attended Unity of Tustin, and now you're on this call, and you're nominated for a screenwriting award. I absolutely love the way it works. And so let's go into the invocation. And one of the things we're going to use after the call is no longer recorded, because we can't do that with the recording, is Song of the Soul. So if you stay on until the very end, you'll hear that. But it opens with a stanza that Chris Williamson, the author, writer of this music, said was a stanza that anchored everything in her life and in this Song of the Soul. And these are the words, and I used to use this music at Unity of Tustin a lot. The words to open my eyes that I may see. Open my eyes that I may see glimpses of truth you have for me. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. And so let's take a deep breath and go into a moment of silence as I do an invocation, inviting the Holy Spirit to guide the words that we share on this call, the words that Ross and I share. May they be illumined words that Spirit brings into our awareness. Awareness with a capital A of awareness with a small a. May the people who share in the last 30 minutes of the call bring illumined sharing, that we all may learn from what they are saying, that we all may begin to experience those illumined words in our own life. Come, Holy Spirit. And let's just take a moment to absorb that in the silence, in the silence, in the silence. And so it is. And so, as we come back into the awareness of the room that you're in, the room that I'm in, the room that we are in with each other here today, let's just take a moment and give gratitude for all of those that you're seeing on the call, all of those that um, are a part of this energy of spirit unfolding. We're so grateful for every single one of you, so deeply grateful that we can share this time together. The words from Song of the Soul that I absolutely, totally loved was a phrase in the second stanza. I am not dying, I am dancing. And so what I want you to know now that that is so true for me in my 80s, in my fourth active life. I am not dying. I am dancing and intend to be dancing. You too, Alon. I know that's true for you also. Dancing for all of the rest of my life. And Ross, you and I and Mary had a conversation about your life just briefly. We didn't go into any kind of details. And I gave you the option of choosing where you would like to start. And I mentioned all of the kinds of things that have been important in my life, things that I consider part of what we uniquely want to do in these conversation calls that ultimately will move toward the individual people sharing some weekly calls on a different day, perhaps on Called by Love's platform, perhaps on their own platform, and having affiliate status, things we've never quite done successfully before on Called by Love Institute. But I love the fact that Unity talks about involution, the descent of spirit, and evolution, the ascent of the soul. And so it's an ascending and descending path, but the descent comes first. Spirit, let there be light, is descending into form. And then the ascent begins with the second stage of creation. Now I'm referring back to my book, Codes of Your Soul's Invisible Codes. Faith that is in the second stage of creation. I taught that for years at Unity in Tustin. Dana, you probably remember that. Maybe it even influenced some of the things that you're involved with now. Involution and evolution, and dancing all of the colors of the rainbow. The rainbow has 7 colors. There's actually, and Mary is more of an expert at this than I am, there's a second tier of rainbow colors. And I was absolutely fascinated when I saw that in one of Mary's posts, that many of the colors in this house, this wonderful, exquisite house that I bought here in Kansas City, are second tier colors. And I had no idea, other than the fact in a picture I saw the walls in one room as looking like they were black, and I got here and they were deep purple. And I loved it. And sitting in that room right now, which is the family room in the kitchen. And so, um, dancing all of the colors of the rainbow, knowing yourself in all of the acts of your life. I'm in my fourth act. Mary and Ross are in their third act. Their children are in their second act. And a new grandbaby is coming into their life. And that will be a child born into its first act. And I can see where my spark of divine, where spirit descending was sparking in my life when I was a very young child. My earliest memory of that is at 5 years old. I will tell my own stories in the time of my own time next month, but I just want you to be aware that we're looking at these calls as being soul stories. The 7 year cycles are about the human stories. They're about our evolution up into um, all of the ways we moved into success in life, lived our lives in our 20s and 30s, probably. Many people live it in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. Many people don't ever go beyond the third or fourth act of their lives. But those of us who are blessed to have had the experience of having that experience that wakes us up, and often it comes out of pain or sadness or loss. And that was certainly true in my life. Death has been a predominant friend in my life. And I am so grateful that at one point I was introduced to Suzanne Giesman, and I began to know both the visible and the invisible. But my son introduced me to it to begin with and said, Mom, will you teach Paul how to listen? He never listens to me. And that was after my son had gone into the invisible. And he said, Mom, tell him that when I'm talking to him, he'll think it's his mind. It's not. It's me, and he'll know it's me because he'll recognize me by the way I say it. So, who are you not hearing from the invisible? You will recognize them by the way they say it. Anyway, Ross, let's move toward our time together, and let's move toward you sharing and dancing those colors of the rainbow and giving us glimpses of your soul story. So, Ross, go for it. Where do you want to begin? In the beginning.
Well, I think one of the themes of this particular call that we spoke about was a theme of a sacred love story. So I want to begin there, and I've got a couple love stories to tell.
Fabulous.
Uh, so a story, any kind of a story has a character, and in our own personal love stories, we are a character in our story. Oftentimes, that character is in some kind of a fix, some sort of a situation that he or she doesn't know how to get out of. There's a beautiful phrase coined by our friend Morgan McKenna, who may be joining us on the call, that we are in what might be called a captive narrative, a narrative that is holding us in a certain place, in a certain social role, in a certain role that we have maybe have made up for ourselves.
And that
And
could involve high success.
oh, of course, it can be all kinds of different captive narratives. But the captive narrative in this story is kind of the narrative of the weakling. Okay. So I want to begin. This is a story from when I was 17 years old. My sister Beth, who is on the call, and Teslin Green, who has been a reader of my book, and also Jason will know this story because it did end up in my novel, Keepers of the Field. And I want to thank you, Beth, especially for being here with us today because you were the one person that really, really helped me. And that's its own sacred love story that could, you know, put your feet in the mud, shoulder the wheel, head in the boundless sky right with me in this project. But this story starts when I was 17 years old, and my particular captive narrative, this it was that I wasn't a particularly strong kid growing up. I was small. I had a lot of allergies. I was on the debate team. And when I got my driver's license, I think I was 5'2" and weighed 92 pounds at age 16. This story picks up 1 year later, maybe at 5'4", 5'5", still like 95 pounds or something like that. And I was an Eagle Scout, and I had taken a trip earlier in my scouting days up to the Northwoods, up to a high adventure base, and had a wonderful time up there, and had a idea of myself that I might become a wilderness guide, that I might be the person that could take people out on trips and have these incredible, boyhood romps out in the wilderness and fish and get dirty and have adventures and go to magical places and all that sort of thing. So I applied to be for wilderness guide training and was accepted. I think largely because I was an Eagle Scout and had been on a trip before. And I got to the training at age 17, and all of my other compatriots, what we would now call colleagues or other people in the guide training program, were very different than me in many ways. Most of their difference was in their physical characteristics. There was a guy there that would later become the NCAA Division I heavyweight wrestling champion. Okay. There was another guy that was 6'8". This Nordic guy, several people that were 20-year-old men, okay, that were in this training program. And as we would stack down, I was down at the very bottom in terms of size and physique and all of that, and I never really had developed it. And so we went out in the woods, all of us, in this guide training program. And this was back in the early 70s. This was before kid protection and before everybody got a participation medal and before the facilitators were kind to people. This was a place where they were going to do the old style ordeal and military style training, where the few, the proud, the select, the Marines were going to make it. And the way that works is that the bar is set to a certain standard where most of the people can cross it, but there's a few who can't. And they're the ones that leave the program, are taken out of it, who are kind of left in shame. They don't cut it, and that actually creates the esprit de corps of the elite group, of the elite kind of men's group. And there's a lot of those social structures that are still working today. In law school, the professor will say the first thing, look to the right of you, look to the left of you, one of you is not going to be here next year. It's a weeding out process. So this went immediately into a physical weeding out process where we put a lot of weight on our backs, huge canoes, 17-foot aluminum Grumman canoes with a backpack, and began to go through the wilderness in an ordeal style. And there was two leaders that we had. One was kind of the alpha male type guy, fit, blonde, beautiful. We called him Permapress Pete because he would sleep on his pants so that he had a crease in his pants, and be really, someone that could be looked at and admired. And then the second leader was a different sort of character, disheveled, with a kind of a hat. He had a beard. His teeth were not straight. He was quiet. No one could really kind of figure out why he was selected as the second leader of this group, because he wasn't really in charge in that way. So the third day of this journey was kind of one of the big weeding out days, and they were portaging us through a cedar swamp. And I'm hope that none of the people on the call have ever been in one because they're nasty, hard places. There are swamps. There's not enough land there to walk, and there are places where you take a step and you're up to your thigh or up to your waist in muck. And I had a canoe on my back, and was just being completely defeated by this. I was carrying a 100-pound weight and I only weighed 95 pounds. And as the group went off into the distance, I was struggling behind, and getting further and further behind. And then I took a step, and it was a step that I shouldn't have taken, and I was up to my waist and just stuck, just completely stuck, and couldn't do anything, couldn't move anywhere, just stuck. All right. So that was a metaphor for my kind of captive narrative at the time, and I was playing right into the narrative of the program. So after about 45 minutes of being there, I heard a little noise coming through the woods, and who was it except for this disheveled guy? Okay, this guy, his name was Billy Finucane, and he came back and looked at me, sat down, offered me a cigarette. I'd never had a cigarette before in my life. This is a Boy Scout trip. We weren't supposed to be smoking. And he just looked at me and, with tremendous compassion. And he said, you're not going to make it, right? You know that this is not your game. This game is rigged against you. Okay. And he said, I want to offer you a different game to play. And the game I want you to play, or I would offer that you might play, is that instead of being in this guide training program and trying to compete and trying to make it and worrying about whether you will or not, I want you to see the beauty. I want you to see the beauty. And there's a moment in time, which in a love story is an intersection of energies in a moment in time. It's a meeting in time. And just as Marge has said, there's an involutionary quality to it where the lover sees the beloved and offers something so completely different than you might imagine. So rare. There's a song to it. You know that when you are singing the song, that you hear it. And at this particular moment, this teachable moment, I was able to hear that song. And suddenly, just like that, I was able to see the beauty, like a click over. Something happened where the mosquitoes that were going into my hand, the cigarette smoke whirling, the mucky swamp, suddenly became the wilderness, suddenly became her, the beauty. So that was the beginning of a sacred love story. And this is a love story of the teacher and the student. And that particular moment, I think, Billy might have helped me out of the muck and let me a hand. He did not pick up my weight, didn't, because that would have been a shaming thing to do, but just was there with me and just said, the beauty. See the beauty in the pain, see the beauty everywhere. And we began on a whole new adventure and a whole new story. That story had a lovely ending. I ended up completing this guide training program. I think I still would have been kicked out, but for the fact that my mentor was a voice and an advocate for me. And it began this teaching moment. And a love story goes two ways. I didn't really realize at the time because I thought that I was the one that was receiving the gift. But as the student, I was also giving a gift to the teacher because this guy was a failure in life. He wasn't doing well in school. He wasn't doing well in his relationships. He wasn't living in a particularly good place. He didn't come from a good family. He wasn't particularly handsome. He really wasn't all that smart. And he needed me to see him and needed me to receive what he had to offer. And I realized, and I think nobody else on the trip did, that why he was on the trip, because he knew more about the wilderness than anybody else. He knew about her, knew the plants, knew the stars, knew the animals, knew the wind, and knew how to work with her, how to move through her, how to move silently, how to light fires after 3 days of heavy rains, how to find the right campsite, how to shoulder a pack, how to keep your kit together. How he knew everything about it. He was the best woodsman in the whole place by far. And that training allowed me then to take a lot of trips by myself, 27 of them in total, and also a couple of long trips um, where the wilderness opened up to me. And I had a big mystical experience out there that became one of the things that was the subject of the book that I wrote. And the book itself has opened up things. And there's been this continuous healing. Beth, I just want to acknowledge you and your help in the book. It kind of healed our relationship and helped us to learn how to work together. And Tess, I want to thank you so much for being such a supporter, and Mary, in that process. So the sacred love stories continue to live and give and share as they grow and grow. So I'll stop there, and that's my example of a sacred love story. And maybe Marge, if you have any like questions or anything like that.
Well, I just want to highlight some of the things that was in the email introducing the call. Um, you're a mystic. You're also a traveler on the path, and you're also a person who comes from the realms of what I would call high success. You're a lawyer. Uh, you have taught mediation to multiple lawyers around the world. You are a strategist for several global nonprofits. You're a husband. And I know how successful you've been with that because I have become friends with you and your beloved wife, Mary. And you have told me over and over again how well you partner together. What I know for myself is that I didn't do marriage very well, but I sure do know how to partner. And I partner with people that I've never been involved in romantic relationships with. And whether they're male or female is irrelevant because we can partner well. And what I also know is that you're an author. Your book, Keepers of the Field, explores not just your life on a human plane, but also your life as a mystic, and beyond that, even into a unitive life, oneness, living in oneness, having awareness of oneness. And so it's profound that you have gained this wisdom as a result of a love story with the wilderness.
Yeah. That's one of the
The
love
wilderness.
stories in my life, and there's many, of course, many more to tell. Um, just say one of the things that might be useful to people on the call, certainly useful to me, is that we all have multiple stories running all the time. One is a story that you just told to some degree, Marge. Sometimes I call that kind of the squealing pig. I've, worked for the U.S. Congress. I'm a lawyer. I'm a family. I've a father. I've done this stuff. I've, gotten XYZ awards, and I'm a member of so many societies and all of that sort of thing. All of us, of course, need that story, and we all have that. And you have one, Marge, as one of the four runners and forebearers of the women's liberation movement, going out on your own, being an experiential learner, getting a PhD, becoming a minister, all of that. We have all of that. And those are really important stories to tell. Oftentimes, however, there is a story that runs underneath that story. That's the social story. And we all have to find places in this social milieu for us to thrive and live and meet the expectations of society. That's important. But there's a soul story that goes underneath that. That is the story of these encounters in time, these unexpected encounters that offer something that the social story would never have imagined, being useful. In the story that I just told, the Wilderness Guide program had zero place for seeing the beauty. Nothing was in that script at all. And so that and beauty, of course, is something which is the lover's engine. The underneath story is often a love story. It's a story of pain. It's a story of suffering. It's a story of getting into fixes. It's oftentimes a story of deconstruction of a previous self so that another new self can emerge. That painful process of deconstruction and reconstruction, that process of being in the little chrysalis, the little cocoon of hanging there for a long time, not knowing, where to go. And then there's something that seems like a divine influence. It's a higher vibrational frequency that can come in and liberate us from our stories. That's the deep story that then liberates us to a new path of growth. And then that path of growth deconstructs and we get on to another one. And then the next and the next. And as we go up and down, we can see that that's progressively higher and clearer and better over time. But there's a deep story that runs in everyone's life that oftentimes we don't really share. And I think that one of the things that we want to do here at Call by Love Institute and on these calls is to share those deep love stories. Okay. And you're going to give some instruction about how to do that. These calls are going to be recorded. So we need to tell stories that we're willing to have out in public. And then there's some stories that we might not want to have out in public. But there's a story underneath the story, the soul story, what the soul needs to have to grow and get out of this life. And when most people are getting to be our age or what you call the fourth act, Marge, those social stories become less and less and less and less important. And the soul story is what becomes fundamentally important. And we have to finish our soul stories and live into them. So I got one more story to tell if you want to do that before we open it up. Do you want to do that?
You reminded me of something that I just read this morning from David Stendhal Rast. And this is a quote: "Grateful eyes look at each thing as if they had never seen it before.
Yes.
And caress it as if they would never see it again."
Yeah.
And of course, he's the founder of Grateful Living and their website and the wonderful work that they do. And he's in his 90s now. I just read his most recent book, and still writing, still teaching, although he's no longer on their web page as much, except by video. I think of Ed Miller, who was in Mary, included his picture of the rainbow, that he took the picture himself over Gold Hill in Oregon, where he was. He was a member of my very first church in Walnut Creek, California. And he was struggling, not knowing, trying to find himself. But we've stayed in touch over the years. And when I knew him in Walnut Creek, he was actually living in the house, sort of caretaking it, where the church was meeting when we were in the process of starting another church. And and I was teaching a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And he literally took every word of that book and digested it and began living it. Um, and Ed is just an amazing soul now. That book was life changing for him. He's now living in Gold Hill, Oregon. He's a producer and a director of plays in community theaters in his area. He's written two books or more, three, I think, one about his father, one about his mother, and another one um, about the process. And uh, just an incredible person.
Yeah.
And one of the people that I want to interview at some point in the next year. We've got big plans for the year.
You. But Marge, back to the David Stendhal Ross quote that you just said about the way that you see the world. In our theme of sacred love stories, the lover's engine is seeing and being seen. Seeing and being seen. That's the fundamental driver of it, whether or not it's a teacher-student love story like the one that I just told, whether it's a romantic love story, whether it's a love story of a family, whatever, or of your work, whatever it is. It's a process of seeing and being seen. And it goes beyond, if it's really going to be a true sacred love story, that process of seeing and being seen isn't just a dyad. It isn't just a polarity, the masculine and feminine coming together, the teacher and the student coming together, the individual and team coming together. There's always a third thing that the love story points to. And just an example of it in the story that I just told, the third thing was nature, her, and what we might call the universe. It was a love story that was preparing us to, and the third thing was holding us all the time. It was holding the context of the love story, making it whole, um, uh, stabilizing the tensions that always come in a dyad, and that third thing was what we were going into. So there was a sense of a potential future and a potential place that we could inhabit that was bigger than either of us, and that has mysteries that the love story was beginning to reveal. So that's those stories, those deep soul stories. I think if we look at them, maybe we could talk about them a little bit more. But they always have this character of the being held by something larger and preparing us to move into something larger that will fundamentally transform us. And nature certainly did that for me. It transformed my body, my mind, my soul. I was just getting ready for it, and in a traditional male female romantic love story, the story that Mary and I have, there's the man, the woman, the husband, the wife, but it creates a third thing called the family, which endures. It endures for generations. It's a yeah, 1,000-year project. Okay, it's a long, and it's larger. Then you put your currents into the sacred love story, puts its currents into the big love story, and begins to form it and change it. And that's all. I think a lot of the work when you're talking about spiritual work, what we do, is we put our little current into the sacred love story. And it's important, the one that we put in, you know. I can tell you that encounter between me and Billy so fundamentally changed the guide training program at that base. Because guess who was the lead guide trainer? Yeah, it was me. I became that role, and I could fundamentally see how this adequate but relatively flawed way that we were proceeding could really be changed and produce a whole other group type of person. People that were really seeing what they were out there to see.
And that thing that holds us, we can call it by many different names.
Exactly.
The essence of the all that is, spirit, Holy Spirit. Some of us call it God. Others find the word God repulsive because they've been so turned off about definitions of religion and so on. Um, you can call it the mystery. You can call it the vastness. Looking up into the sky can be a way of accessing it. Ed does that on the deck here at Holly, and in summertime, not. um, it's an amazing connection that we have with this vastness,
Right.
and yet it can come to us through intersections in time. And what I realized, Ross, is that you and I had seen each other online in classes with Terry O'Fallon, multiple ones. Um, I didn't know you, even though I'd been involved in Integral for a long time. You were co-founder of Integral Institute, which I was invited to and didn't because I didn't think I had time. and um, and you were there in the background of my life, and we were even at a retreat with Terry O'Fallon in San Diego together. Never had a connection personally, and
Right.
yet when my brother died or was in the process of dying, and I called Johnny Thomas to find out if he could help me find some caretakers in Boulder, 24-hour care to bring him home from the hospital. He was such a bad patient, they wouldn't accept him in any assisted living homes. and and Johnny said, "Well, I know someone, Mary Hostetter." And as a result of that, you and Mary came into Willard's life and my life as an intersection in time. Mary is a high-end realtor in Boulder, knows all of the dynamics of real estate in Boulder and the financial market there. And she has a background in finance, actually. And you have this background in law, and you understand mediation. And one of the things I said to you, because I knew we were at a cross point. My brother had not particularly known how to, or he did his best, but he wasn't a good manager, particularly of the big picture of the Brown Palace Apartments. And yet, when you came and visited and met him with Mary, you listened to him tell his story. You listened to him talk about our stepfather who had bought that with my mother, and how it was a legacy. And you listened to him and you heard him deeply, and he began to trust you.
Right.
And I said to you, Raj, I want you to use a model that I used to teach with. It's called the SOC model. Here's the situation. Here are the options. Either go for 7, which is human plane, according to Charles Fillmore, or go for 12, or somewhere in between. 12 is spiritual plane. Actually, the soul plane is 10. And I said, you write me a proposal. Tell me what I should do. I'm a co-owner of something that is on teetering on the edge. And you wrote me a 19-page document, 19 pages. The one we implemented was on the very last of those 19 pages.
Yeah. So
And
it's like, yeah. So, we meet each other, as this relates to our theme. What you were saying at the beginning of March was that we're kind of running on parallel paths, and many of us on this call and on group calls like this, we're on parallel paths uh, that are maybe not intersecting, or maybe just intersecting here for the first time. But it's remarkable how, you can be on a path like Marge, you and I have been on the same like parallel paths for 40 years and learning the same language, reading the same books and all of that. Don't have any idea really, who we are. And then there's a moment in time that is often called by what I would call the surface self, the social self. You did need a lawyer. Willa needed one. You needed all that. You're called by the surface self to do some sort of a task. It might be picking up a kid or raking the leaves in the yard or helping with a community project or something like that. We meet on that surface level, and yet then there's an opportunity to see, okay, this is an intersection in time in which something other than this can happen. And my friend Jason, who's on this call, maybe you'll get a chance to talk. Jason is a master at this, meeting people at the surface level and seeing that then there's a intersection of a sacred story that can happen where we really can help each other grow and develop and everything. We kind of got to give up some of these roles or just do them adequately and get into the real opportunity that's there. And I think that that's one of the arts of conscious living, is that we see those opportunities and take advantage of them when they're there.
so, just one last thing I want to share about you that I think is important. Um, Michael Ward was on the board of Called by Love Institute for many years. It's been in existence for over 10 years. And Michael was an amazing soul and one of my partners as a deep friend. Um, and not a romantic relationship, but a deep soul friend. We traveled around the world, actually, to India and Egypt and France and Italy. And Michael is on the board of Mother Miracle School now. And he said, Marge, I just don't, I need to resign from Called by Love's board. And I thought for a minute and asked Spirit, who will replace Michael? And you're the one that came into my awareness.
All right.
And I ask you, and you never even paused. You just said yes. So Ross is now on the board of directors of Called by Love Institute. And you know, and Michael is off to India this weekend to spend another 6 months. And it's incredible how it all unfolds according to Spirit's plan, not our plan. And so,
Well, well,
um,
well, good. So we're getting up on the top of the hour. And,
yes,
and I think our plan was to let some folks raise their hands, and if there's like a love story that you want to tell or a comment or some sort of a thing, to give people an opportunity on the call to do that. And
right. And
you got anything
can
burning on
can you
their
give them direction, Mary, on how to raise their hand? And then I want to give them direction about uh, being aware of what to say and what is veiled. So let me do that first. If you want to share, be aware that this call is being recorded and that it will be potentially seen by people who are not on the call. You won't know who those people are necessarily. If you want to share, be aware that what you share is something you are willing to share. Now, Ross told about some of his story he wrote in his book that's veiled. It's written as a novel. I wrote my book, and a lot of my life in that book is veiled. For example, I was in the process of one of my third marriage. I'd been married to Paul for over 23 years, and it was dissolving. One of the things you'll find is that Paul's name is not in the book because I was so unclear about what was happening relative to significant relationship, a 23-year relationship. And in the chapter on Site 6, it's veiled and it's there. Some love stories begin and some love stories end. And but if you have something to say that you veil, know that it won't reveal anything that you don't want revealed. So we're going to go into the segment where we'll allow people to raise their hands. And Lee, I see you're on the call, even though you were late and have to leave early. So those are examples. You can leave these calls early. You can come on late. People will be coming in and out, and we will do the same format. The first hour will be the dialogue, the conversation with me. Thank you, Rosh. You were wonderful today. You told me things about yourself I didn't know.
Okay. All right. So if nobody raises their hand, I'm going to have to tell another story. So
Oh, all right. And
how
so
about you, Tess?
let's
You have
go
a story to
back.
tell us.
Mary, can you come on and tell people how to raise their hand? Do we know how to do that? And if you don't know, there's bound to be someone in the gallery and all the people that are on the call that can tell us how to raise hands.
Yeah, I'm trying to learn it. I don't see where we raise hands, but
You go to
basically,
you go to reactions and
okay,
the three little dots.
okay. So
Like that.
people can raise your hand.
Oh yeah, if you click on reactions, there's I have a MacBook Pro, and it says raise hand, and you just click
Right.
on that. And if you have
Or you can put a love thing in there too. We can
yeah,
put the hand up.
so I can put that love thing.
The love thing.
Example.
Okay, Tessalyn, let's see, would like to,
All right, Tess, you're
Oh, we need
muted.
to unmute her, or she needs to unmute herself.
I just I put the heart up. I didn't actually raise my hand, but
oh,
now that I'm on, I just want to express just deep gratitude for Ross and Mary and for this opportunity today to reconnect with them in a very deep way. And it's really igniting the heart and beauty in my life, which has been a constant companion with nature throughout my life. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Beautiful, Tess. It's so nice to meet you. Oh, and I see Alon has his hand up. I'm so grateful, Alon.
Before we go to Alon, though, I just want to introduce Tess to this community. Tessalyn is one of my soul friends for sure, right, Tess?
That's right.
Uh, she is a incredible musician. Really a good one. It's been on this consciousness trail for a really long time, and I just am really grateful, Tess, for you being in my life and our lives, and for you holding me and seeing me. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ross.
Love those words. You are holding me and seeing me. Yeah.
So I was very touched by your story, Russ. I have a deep love for nature, and it has always been, for me, something I could rely on. And I have a question. My very significant story in the last 15 years, I'm 84 now. So I'm in my fourth act as well, as Marge knows. And the significant story happened about, in when I was 74, 75, and I had a liver transplant and almost died. And that really brought up for me the question, so what is my life about anyway? I had been a successful consultant, teacher, etc., but I knew this was
Author.
author, yes, leadership. But my sense that, and as I knew I could possibly not come out of this, uh, I asked myself, so what is the purpose of the rest of my life? And I was in the third age at the time, and to open up to the sense of larger service that I am called to, and I just lost the screen for a second. I so what role does the possibility of death plays in revealing the story under the story? Death or possible death or death of a person that is very, very close to you. Because that has been, and now I work with elders, mostly people who want to become regenerative elders, reinvent their life as they turn into elderhood. And most of them are elders in training, like me. And the idea is indeed what are some of the key aspects of myself that are still wanting to be revealed, both to myself and to others. And the regenerative aspect is that, and I love that some authors say that the reason we live much longer now is that yes, we have better health, etc. But we have a role to play in reimagining, reinventing, regenerating the world. And elders have a key role to play in doing that. So I'm not maybe rumbling a little bit, but it runs around. So what am I here to do, especially in my later years? And what willingness do I have to reinvent myself, to renew myself as a way to restore the community I'm in and to regenerate the environment I'm within?
Oh, and you have done such a good job of that, Alan. I remember when you were in the hospital one time, and this is during the time that you and Eric and I were doing weekly calls that were supportive of each other, and all of us were going through changes. And you were in your hospital bed, and you said, I do not want to miss my weekly call. And literally, you had them bring your computer so that we could be with you, supporting you there in that hospital bed.
And one aspect I would say, because you mentioned these calls, is this is the work, the regenerative work, that is very difficult to do just by oneself.
Yes.
And to be in the company of others who are actually having the same, and that's what we have. We have a group now of 18 people, again, for the third time, wanting to go on that journey of, as Ross said very well, we need to be heard and seen, and to be able to see what is in us that we haven't revealed to ourselves yet.
And
Well,
most of the consulting work you were doing during one period of your life was in Europe. Is that true?
Yes, I did some of that in Europe as well. Yeah, yeah, helping.
That's why you and Ross need to connect.
Great. Well, starting that process here, Elaine, I think that you probably have the answer to your own question about why we're here. Just to talk about death for just a second. I think it was, to paraphrase, Carlos Castaneda. He basically said, in a life where death is the stalker, there's only decisions. Okay, that's it. There's only It's something that we know is a finality that puts pressure on this evolutionary journey, and I think compacts its wavelength, right? So it compacts it. We don't have 1,000 years to do this. We might have 90, okay,
Right,
or maybe
right.
60 or something like that. And so the wavelength of this divine love story that we're talking about gets compacted, and we will have 5 or 6 different persons, different stories that we're going to live in now in the scope of a single life. And just as you said, now we're hanging around now to our 80s instead of dying in our 50s
Yes.
because we've got some great things to do and some great stories to tell. We're not done yet. Okay, we're not done yet, and that there's actually I'm feeling it as I'm getting older. There's even though there's physical limitations that don't have the robustness that I had when I was 20 years old, but the vitality, the inner vitality is stronger than ever.
It is.
And the clarity gets stronger. So that's really hopeful. You know, you at 75, you might have 3 or 4 more. You know, more roles to
I
play.
feel like I have another 15 or 20 years left.
Oh.
And I feel like I'm still dancing.
Yes.
You know, I got an email from Suzanne Giesman this morning about a cruise that she's doing to the Mediterranean. And I thought, wow, I would love to go on that. You know, all of a sudden, new vitality starts showing up.
Well, let's hear from Lori. Lori, you got your hand up.
Were you talking to me, Ross?
Yeah, let's hear from you.
Hi, Ross. Hi,
Hi.
Marge. So lovely
Hi,
to see you.
Lori.
So I was wondering why I wanted to come on this call today. Because I'm feeling shredded. I'm feeling in tatters. I feel like I'm completely out of sorts. So why would I want to come on this call today? And bless you both. It's a very intellectual call, and I just cannot key into that. I cannot identify with it. I cannot do that. I cannot sit here and think because my felt sense is just wounded right now. Although I still have things to be grateful for, I'm just not in good spiritual shape right now. And I came on this call and I saw all these people on this call. I have to tell you what, I've been going through my Christmas cards, trying to winnow down my Christmas collection. And I started reading all these cards going, can I get rid of some of these? I have decades of cards. All of these cards are saying, oh, we love you. Oh, we wish you a good year. Oh, you're fantastic. We hope your dreams come true. And it was such healing. All these people through decades of my life and all of these good wishes in these Christmas cards. And when I came on this call and I saw the people on this call, I thought, I need to do the same thing with these people. I need them here now. You guys don't know me. You don't need to know me. And I went into prayer. I went into the silence. That which is the voice of God is silence. And I called you all forth and you huddled around me. And everybody was I was in the center of the circle of everyone here. You all interwove your arms together and you put healing balm on my wounds. And you encircled me and you pulled me back in. You pulled my tatters and shreds and you pulled me back together. I cannot intellectualize. I can only feel. And I just want you to know, you all blessed me today and I needed it. And that is actually why I came. And I returned the blessings back to you. That is I forget what March said in her prayer, the invoking and the exvoking. I returned back to you that which I took.
Yes. Give and it will be given unto you.
And I
Lori,
was given it and I gave it back. Go ahead.
Lori, I invite you to put your gallery view and look at all of the people on this call. And the screen, my screen is full with the faces of beautiful people. And as you look at those beautiful people, Lori, I invite you to just take a deep breath, and I invite everyone on the call to just send Lori love and do what David Steindl-Rast said, in that look with Lori with gratitude, that like you've never seen before, and then hold Lori, caressing her, holding her in the arms of love. And we're looking into your face right now. And even if you take off your eyes, we'll look more directly into your eyes. Take off your glasses so that we can see, and just look into just sending you, caressing you with love, holding you. And we invoke the presence and the power of the Holy Spirit. And we ask that Lori's feeling of feeling shredded can dissolve in this love. And that dissolve will open to her the platforms of her destiny, and the platforms of the next steps will be revealed to her, one day at a time, one step at a time. And we ask these things in the name and through the power of the one Spirit, Jesus, beloved, whatever name you call it. And so it is. Amen. Amen and amen. The translation is, and so it is. All right. Do we have another hand up by chance? We still have about 15 minutes left, and we'll let Ross tell his story unless someone raises their hand. This is your time to raise your hand. So Ross, go for it. And if someone raises their hand, we'll transition into them.
Well, I don't know if we, have enough time left for this story, so I'll just try to tell it briefly. This is another love story that starts with a character in the fix. This happens to be my own personal story, so I'm the character in the story. This has to do with a type of love that really involves the exposition or the revealing of one's path of service. I was, after all this wilderness guiding stuff, I was encouraged by our dad, Beth, to go to law school, strongly encouraged, as you know, because he didn't like the direction, of the wild man that I was. Kind of this wild mystic was not, was not really quite the idea of, a guy that was gonna, be a productive member of society.
So who was it that encouraged you?
My dad.
Your dad.
And so I had with some hesitation, I made a deal with him because he really wanted me to go to law school because I was a debater and all that kind of stuff, and I had decent grades and all of that sort of stuff. And I said, okay, man, I'll take the goddamn test. Okay, I will show up. I'll spend 3 hours on a Saturday morning. I'll take the law school admission test down at the University of Illinois. My sole preparation for the test was I didn't have my girlfriend stay over. I got a good night's sleep and I ate breakfast. That was it. No study courses, nothing. I did take a look at the little 4-page brochure that they sent out with when you registered for the test, and that was it. Went in, spent the 3 hours, answered all the questions, filled in all the dots, and about a month later, I get the test results back in. And my results were, I got one of the highest scores in the United States. There were 0.2% of the kids, college seniors, that scored better than I did on that test. And all I was doing was just playing, picking out the best of all the wrong answers and and that sort of thing. So there was this sort of thing where suddenly I had this thing that everybody wanted, these great scores where you could go now to all these different law schools around the country and they'd all say yes, we'd come in. So I did that and went to law school and was totally lost in the place, just totally lost. I didn't understand the thing, not that I couldn't understand the course material, but the professors were odd. They were all atheists. They were all peacocks. They were odd people that just seemed to know more and more and more about less and less and less. The student body, with a couple of exceptions of a few friends I made, was odd. They were very competitive, very anxious kids, that were learning how to be these fierce assholes. Lack of a better word. And that was like an odd, an odd thing. Yeah. So I went through all that law school stuff, graduated, passed 2 bar exams, got a job, was in it for 2.5 years with a big multinational corporation, quit, left with my buddy Mark to try to write some screenplays, which was unsuccessful. And for the first 7 years of my career, I had really no idea at all why I was there. None. And I think maybe a lot of people have had that situation too, where you're just kind of, drifting in this social milieu and don't really know why you're there. Don't really know why you're there. And so of course, my law firm was failing because I didn't know how to run a business or didn't really have any sort of sense of all that. We were running out of money. We couldn't pay the rent. All of this kind of stress and everything like that. And a woman came into my office, this beautiful young Hispanic girl who was in my spiritual community, sat down, eyes full of tears, and told me this story about how she had just lost her job and fired from her job. She was the sole support of her mother, her sick mother who was at home. This is like a little Hispanic neighborhood where there's still chickens in the backyard and stuff like that. She'd lost her job and she'd been accused of stealing $7,000 out of a 7-Eleven cash bag at her bank. And she hadn't done it. But she was facing at that point in time felony theft charges, lost her job, lost her means of support. She couldn't support her mother anymore. And she just said, "Can you help me? Can you help me?" And at that moment, that was an intersection in time where she thought she needed me, but that was not the case. I needed her. And there was a revelation that happens, which sometimes does happen at this moment of time, that all the training that I had had and all the skills that I could bring to this, because I clearly had the skills to do this job, that they could be a path of service. A path of service. 7 whole years, law school, 2 bar exams, big corporate job and stuff like that. That thought had never entered my mind. Not once. That what I was learning could be a path of service, and it was never taught in school. And there was a revelation there that just said, yeah, I can help you. I can. I got the tools. I've got a diploma on the wall that says I could, file a wrongful termination lawsuit for you. I can solve this problem. And I did. I filed my first lawsuit. Not that I wanted to sue this bank because I didn't know how to do a lawsuit, but I wanted to just get their attention So I went down, I filed a lawsuit. I took the lawsuit to the president of the bank personally and just said, we don't want to sue you, but we do want to get your attention. You've made a mistake. What we want to have, this gal take a lie detector test. You could administer it, you can watch it. And I would, request specifically that you do an audit. Okay. Instead of this conclusion that she stole it, an audit and see if you can find the money somewhere else. So the bank president said, yeah, did that. My client passed a lie detector with flying colors, and they did the audit, and they found out that there was an accounting error, that someone had just put that money in the wrong bucket. Okay. So a week and a half later, and this is a pretty quick turnaround time for a legal process, this gal had her job back fully, with back pay for the time that she was off. All the charges were lifted, and her I still hadn't made $1 in my law firm because she didn't have any money to pay me. But her interpretation was that I was a gift from God. Was her interpretation. And my interpretation of her was that she was a gift from God. She showed me that what I had been trained for could be a path of service to other people. And that started a beautiful thing that happened. I ended up representing all the Hispanic people in the neighborhood who all had property that was in a neighborhood that was turning and regentrifying. And I was able to work with all the developers that wanted to buy their property, work with all of them, make sure that they got the right price, that they were handled and everything. And the whole community started to run through my door. Okay. And it started to be a business, of serving these people in the restaurants and everything like that. And so it was a beautiful little love story. And I'll just say that it has that sort of characteristic as well, that is so completely unexpected. The change in the captive narrative, that I was in at that particular time, which was kind of a victim mode, that life had put me in the wrong place. Okay. Was changed by that love story. So I'll just leave it at that.
So
And
one thing I want to say, Ross, is you are a beautiful soul. Your soul love story is wonderful. And after we turn off the recording, which I don't want to do right now, but after we turn it off, I want everyone to listen to a recording of the Song of Your Soul and realize that that song applies to them just as it applies to you and to me. And next month, I'll tell you how that became so significant in my life, someone dying. And next month, I'll even tell my story about applying to law school.
good. So we've got just like 5 minutes to close. I do want to say that Marge, Mary, and I are reconstituting the Called by Love Institute. We're giving it a kind of a new life. Marge has asked us for help. We've said yes. If you want to help this effort and this little tiny fledgling thing, we would sure appreciate it. There's a little donate button in the email that you got, and I think Mary, you might put a link to the website in the chat. We're never going to pay ourselves anything for this, but some things will to help with the technical things and to pay the bills for the hosting and stuff like that, keep the lights on. It would be really appreciated, if
One of the things we are looking for right now is a virtual assistant that actually knows how to launch programs and put things together in ways that are beyond our gifts. And I know there's people that are just incredibly gifted at that. And I'm praying the Holy Spirit that those people will show up in your life or my life or Mary's life, or someone will let us know that they are the perfect virtual assistant for the work that we want to do, especially if they've heard this call. What we want to do is something that is unique, something no one else is doing on the web that I know of. And that is the love stories of the soul. And I saw you a couple of times wipe your eyes, Ross.
Yeah,
I think that's the only time I've seen you cry,
I'm not a
actually.
crier. I'll tell you that.
Well, you showed up today with that vulnerability and your heart open, and I am so grateful for you in my life.
Yeah, I'm grateful for you too, Marge. All right. Well, why don't you send us out, Marge, and then we will, those that want to stay on and after the recording, we have a little music for you.
And so I'm so grateful for every single person that was on this call. What I will say to you is you are not on this call by accident. You are here because you are yearning for something more, something to be revealed, spirit, to download what is next in your life, what will heal the hurt that you may be feeling. And what I promise you is that it is there for you. You are that, always already. I am that, always already. Divine love holds us and nurtures us. And Called by Love Institute has as its vision and mission nurturing love in a way that can change the world. And so, as we say goodbye to the recorded session, I invite you to stay on. And those of you who can stay on for another 5-10 minutes, Mary and